You're 6 years old. You're eating a fig in your father's garden. Juice runs down your chin. Your sandals are caked in mud, and nobody cares because you're 6 and the sun is out, and life is exactly what it should be. Then a man walks through the gate. He doesn't knock. He doesn't wait. He just walks in like he owns the place. And in a way, he kind of does. Because he represents Rome, and Rome owns everything. He looks at you. Not the way adults usually look at children. Not with warmth or curiosity. He looks at you the way a farmer looks at a horse he's thinking about buying. He checks your hands. He checks your teeth. He looks at your face for a long time without smiling. Then he turns to your father and says something quietly. Your father nods. Your mother makes a sound you've never heard her make before. You don't know what just happened. You're 6. But something in your chest already knows that your life just split in two. The before and the after. This is the after. Here's what they don't tell you up front. For the next 30 years, your entire existence belongs to Rome. Not to your family, not to yourself. To Rome. You'll tend a fire that has been burning since before anyone alive can remember. You'll perform sacred rituals that the entire city depends on. You'll be one of the most powerful women in the ancient world. And you'll be completely, totally suffocatingly alone. Welcome to life as a Vestal virgin. It is exactly as bad as it sounds. So how did you even end up here? The priest started by making a list. Somewhere between 10 and 20 girls from Rome's most respected families. You had to meet every requirement without exception. Both your parents had to be alive. Check. You had to be physically perfect. No defects, no speech problems, no hearing issues. Check. Your family couldn't have a single scandal attached to their name. Check. You had to be between 6 and 10 years old. Check. You passed every test without knowing you were being tested. Then the names went into a lottery. And the Romans told everyone that the goddess Vesta herself reached down and chose, that it was divine will, sacred destiny. Your name came out. And just like that, you stopped belonging to your father. The law had a specific word for what happened next. Captio. It means seizure, not selection, not invitation. Seizure. Like a debt being collected. They bring you to your new home, and honestly, if you didn't know better, you might think you'd gotten lucky. The place is enormous, 3 stories tall, 50 rooms, fountains in the courtyard, mosaic floors in deep colors, roses growing along the garden walls, heated floors that stay warm even in the dead of winter. Marble statues of women line the hallways, former Vestals, their names carved into the base. They stare at you as you walk past. Someday your statue will stand here too. That thought is supposed to feel like an honor. It doesn't, because you're 6 years old and you want your mother and she's not allowed to come inside, and the door behind you just closed, and you are not going home. Not for 30 years. Your first 10 years are about learning. The rituals, the prayers, the ceremonies. The Roman religious calendar is packed tight. Festivals, sacrifices, purification rites, public observances. Each one has exact steps, exact ingredients, exact words. Miss a step and the whole thing is void. Do it wrong and you've failed Rome. No pressure. One of your most important jobs is preparing something called the mola salsa. It's a sacred mixture of roasted grain and salt, prepared in a very specific way that only you and the other Vestals are allowed to perform. Every public sacrifice in Rome requires it. The priest sprinkles it on the animal before the blade comes down. Without your hands, none of it counts. Every altar in the city runs through your kitchen. You are essential. You are powerful. You are also 7 years old, and you cried yourself to sleep again last night, and nobody noticed, because being sad is not part of the job. And then there's the fire. This is the thing. This is the whole thing. Inside the Temple of Vesta burns a flame. It has been burning for centuries. Romans believe it was carried out of Troy by Aeneas himself when the city fell, that it holds the divine protection of Rome inside it, that as long as the flame burns, the gods are still watching over the city. If the fire goes out, Rome is exposed. The gods have looked away. That's the belief. That's what you're guarding. You learn to read the fire the way some people read faces. Its height, its color, the sound it makes in the dark. You tend it through the night on your assigned shifts. You feed it carefully. Too fast and it chokes. Too slow and it starves. You cannot let it go out. You understand what happens if you do. There was a Vestal, generations before you, who fell asleep on her watch. The fire dimmed. Priests rushed in. They caught it barely in time. She was taken to a dark room. She was stripped. The Pontifex Maximus, Rome's highest religious authority, beat her with rods until she couldn't stand. Then she went back to work, because the fire still needed tending. That story gets told to every new Vestal. It gets told to you too, quietly, by one of the older women in the house. Not as a warning, exactly. More like a fact of life. The way someone might tell you that fire is hot. You don't sleep well for a long time after that. By the time you're a teenager, you start to understand the other side of this life. The power. And it is real. You can own property. Roman women almost never could. You can write a legal will in your own name. You can testify in court without swearing an oath, because your word is already considered sacred. When you walk through the streets of Rome, official escorts walk in front of you. The same escorts given to senior magistrates. Senators step aside for you. Emperors receive you with ceremony. And then there's this. If you're walking through the city and a condemned prisoner crosses your path on his way to execution, you can stop the whole thing. Right there. On the street. You raise your hand and say the word and he goes free. No appeal. No paperwork. No override. You just saved a man's life by being in the right place at the right time. That is not a small thing. That is extraordinary. That is the kind of power most people in Rome, men included, will never come close to touching. But here's what nobody puts on the monument. Every single one of those privileges is compensation. You can own property because you can't have a husband to own it through. You get escorts because you're one of only 6 sacred women in the city. And Rome can't afford to lose you to street crime. You get the power to pardon because it reinforces the mystique that makes the whole institution work. You have power because Rome needs you to have power, not because anyone asked what you wanted. And underneath all of it, the one rule that never bends: your body is not yours. It has never been yours. For 30 years, no man can touch you. Your purity is not a personal value. It is a state requirement. Rome has decided that the divine protection of the city flows through the chastity of 6 women, and so your chastity belongs to Rome. The penalty for breaking that is not a fine. It's not exile. They bury you alive. There's a place at the edge of the city. The Romans called it the Campus Celeratus, the evil field. When a Vestal is convicted of breaking her vow, they can't spill her blood directly. She's sacred, even in guilt. Killing her outright would defile whoever did it. So Rome found a workaround. They dig a small underground room. Inside they put a lamp, a small piece of bread, a cup of water, just enough to technically call it a furnished space and not a hole in the ground. They dress her in funeral clothes. They seal her inside a litter so the crowd can't look directly at her. And then they carry her through the streets of Rome in a procession. The whole city lines up to watch. Nobody speaks. At the Campus Sceleratus, they set the litter down. She climbs down a ladder into the room below. The entrance is sealed above her. Stone on top. Earth on top of that. Rome has not killed her. Rome has simply built a very small room underground and stopped bringing her food. At least 3 Vestals were buried this way in the historical record. Scholars believe the real number was higher, because sometimes accusation alone was enough. especially if the man doing the accusing was the most powerful man alive. Emperor Domitian knew exactly how this worked. He took power in 81 CE. He was obsessed with moral purity, or at least with the appearance of it. When Rome struggled, when campaigns failed, or the city's mood turned dark, he looked for something to blame. The Vestals were convenient. In 83 CE, he condemned a Vestal named Voronilla. The evidence was thin enough to see through. In 90 CE, 2 more Vestals followed. He wasn't building cases, he was making examples. Then in 91 CE, he went after Cornelia, the chief Vestal, the most senior of the 6. She had served Rome for decades without a single whisper of scandal. The charge against her came from one freed slave who claimed he had seen her alone with a man. No witnesses, no supporting evidence, no proper trial. Domitian held the hearing at his private villa. Cornelia wasn't there. She wasn't permitted to speak. He condemned her without hearing a single word from her mouth. The procession that followed went through the heart of Rome. People lined the streets and watched in silence. Pliny the Younger was there, or close enough to hear it described in detail immediately after. He wrote that the crowd was overwhelmed with grief and outrage and a terrible helplessness. As Cornelia descended the ladder into the chamber below, her robe caught on something. An attendant reached out to help her. She pulled away. She refused his hand. If she was going into the dark, she was going in on her own terms. They were the only terms she had left. The entrance was sealed. Domitian went back to his palace. Cornelia was assassinated 5 years later. Not Cornelia. Domitian. He was stabbed by members of his own household. The Senate voted to erase his name from every monument in Rome. His statues were torn down. Historians have not been kind to him. None of that brought Cornelia back. The evil field keeps what it takes. If you survive your 30 years, they let you go. You are free. You are also somewhere between your late 30s and mid-40s. Your entire adult life happened inside an institution that made every decision for you. You have no husband, no children, no network of relationships built over a lifetime. The family you left as a small child is mostly gone now. The world outside has been moving without you for 3 decades. Rome offers you a pension. It offers to help arrange a marriage if you want one. Most Vestals don't take the marriage. Most stay close to the temple. Because where else do you go? The only life you ever knew wasn't really yours. The world outside doesn't have a place already shaped to fit you. You'd have to build that from scratch. At 40. After a lifetime of being told exactly where to stand. Some women managed it. Some found a kind of peace in it. But many of them just stayed near the fire, even after they were done keeping it. The flame burned for close to 1,000 years. In 394 CE, Emperor Theodosius ordered it extinguished. Christianity was the new official religion of Rome. The old gods were being retired. The Temple of Vesta was closed. The Vestals were disbanded. 1,000 years of unbroken fire went out with an imperial decree and a cold hearth. The Western Roman Empire collapsed less than a century after that. Make of that what you will. Here is what stays with you about all of this. Rome did not pretend the Vestals were nothing. Rome put them at the absolute center of its religious life. Rome gave them real power, real status, real privileges that most people in the ancient world, men included, could never access. Rome celebrated them constantly. And then Rome took a 6-year-old girl from her garden. Rome took her name and her childhood, and her body and 30 years of her life, and called it divine selection, called it sacred honor, built her a statue in a long hallway of other women who had given the same things. Privilege and freedom are not the same thing. Being essential to a system is not the same thing as being seen as a person inside it. You were 6 years old. You dropped a fig in the garden. A priest walked toward you, and the world split in half. Nobody asked. The fire kept burning. You kept it burning. And Rome never once stopped to ask if that was something you chose.